The Grit Guide for Teens was made in collaboration with teens. In a similar vein, teens were highlighted and contributed to my book launch. Let's listen as Emily Weisbrot, a teen, interviews me.
What got you interested in the topic of grit and to write a book for teens on this topic?
I think it's an important question. So I actually, some of you know this, I'm a pretty gritty person. I think people here in my community know that about me. I've always been very academically gritty, but in terms of sometimes my wellness, that wasn't an area that I was so gritty. So what I tried to do was I tried to look at my strengths, where I was always strong academically, and apply it to the areas that I had this weakness. And so for me, it really was a very personal journey about writing about grit. And then the other thing that I found is that in terms of my patients, I have teen patients, I have kids I work in school, and what I found is that the ones that were gritty, the ones who really worked hard, were the ones who could be successful. And I guess that's my lens to this as a psychologist that works with lots of teenagers. I really wanted to share their story, what worked for them, and have it be spread not only in my practice, but with other people as well.
How do you define grit?
Okay, so my book is really based on Dr. Angela Duckworth's research on grit, and she defines grit as having passion and perseverance for long-term goals. For me, I also add the word meaningful to that sentence. So it's having passion and perseverance for long-term and meaningful goals. So what does that mean? So it's having a goal and being able to stick with that goal even when it's really tough, and being able to bounce back. So it's having passion for things that are important to you and being able to kind of rebound and be resilient.
When I first started working with you on this book, grit was not a well-known topic, but now that the concept is more established, what makes this book unique?
Okay, so I think that, I guess what's unique is partly what I said to you before, which is my lens, is that I'm more of a clinical psychologist, and I really am interested also in the notion of like emotional grit. Like, how do people emotionally push through things? And so in my book, what I did was I actually talk about different kinds of grit. So I talk about social grit, extracurricular, academic, and that's sort of unique to the field. That hasn't sort of been, like, really Angela Duckworth spoke a lot about athletes and things like that. So my book is a little different in that it talks about these different domains. It's also the first book that is written for teens, and it was really important, and that's why I'm so glad you're doing this with me, because I really made a concerted effort to involve teens. And I remember I would have you read this and I'd be like, Emily, does this make sense? Like, do teens speak like this? Is it Snapchat? Is it Instagram? Like what, how do you say these things? So I would also bother my daughter and my son about that as well. There's my daughter shaking her head saying, yes, this is true. But I really wanted to make sure that the examples, that it really rung true. And so I think that that's really what I really tried to do. I took the research from Angela Duckworth on grit, on growth mindset, and also Walter Mischel, who I had the pleasure of being his student, on self-control, and tried to put it together in a way that was going to be accessible for teens.
Why did you write a book for teens specifically?
So I think that, first of all, I think it's hard being a teen today. I really do. I think that there's a lot of things that are going on. I think that you have so many things competing for your attention. And I think that right now, even it's true for grown-ups as well, but you know, as a teen, even more so, like, it's hard to think about the long term. And for me, grit is about the long term. How do you really have a goal and stick with it? And if everything is so short term and everything is like a text and a Snapchat, I got that right? Very fast things, right? So I think that it makes it really hard. And so I wanted to give teens a guide to help them through this, because I think that more so today, teens need to kind of grow grit. And I also think that given where we are with technology, I think that a lot of skills like, you know, reading and math and writing, a lot of factual stuff, people will have in their computer. And what really teens need is to have that grit and to be able to deal with hard things. Because I also think that as parents, we're often really quite anxious. And we sometimes protect our kids because we want them to be happy. And I think that sometimes it's hard for us to have our teens kind of have things that are difficult. And so as a result, I think sometimes teens haven't been exposed to so many difficulties, and it makes it hard for them to do hard things. And I think this is what it's about. And one thing I definitely learned from the experience is by doing hard things, you're more willing to do other hard things. So like for me, for example, I've started doing these half marathons with my friend Helene, who's my little workout buddy here. And now I actually been inspired to do the New York Marathon. Yes, I'm making that announcement out loud, so I cannot give it up and not quit. But basically, that experience has helped me to do other hard things. And the same thing, even writing the book, there were definitely things that were so hard, but by doing hard things and knowing I did other hard things, it made it easier to take on other things.
Without giving everything away, what are some key points you want readers to take away?
So for me, I guess the way the book is laid out is about having a gritty mindset. So I really believe that to be gritty, you need to do it from a place of yes, not from a place of no. So if we all took a moment and we just go like this, yes, right, versus no. So when we say yes, we feel more inspired. When we feel no, we just don't want to do anything. And so for me, I really want people to come to this from a place of optimism and from a place of yes, and have that kind of mindset. In terms of behavior, I also think it's not enough just to have that mindset. You have to engage in that behavior. So for example, if I want to run this marathon, I have to stick to the training schedule that I was been given by my friend Helene, even though it might not be exactly what I want to do, because that's how it's going to work. So the fact is, you have to have that mindset, you have to have the behavior, and you also have to have what I have here, which is crazy, which is all this support. Because without support, you can't do these things. And so to take hard things, and that was something I found from the teens that I interviewed, that they took on hard things because they had support. So when you have that community, when you have that built in, you can do amazing things.
Is there a dark side to grit? Can you be too gritty?
I do think that there is a dark side to grit, in that I think that there's stupid grit, as Carolyn Miller writes in her book, Getting Grit. And I also think that if grit is not tied to goodness or purpose, then it's not really the kind of grit that I feel that we should be aspiring to. But when people do things, not only for themselves, but for other people, then people can do great things. So one of the things, and I will say this a little later in my thank yous, that really kind of helped me, is that I dedicated this book to my dad. I'm gonna start to cry. Anyway, and I really felt like by doing this and keeping his memory alive, that I felt like I really wanted to get this message across. Because my dad was really gritty, and I feel like a blessing that I was able to do this work and have him in mind and keep his legacy alive.
What can parents, teachers, and counselors do if they want to encourage their teens to grow their grit?
So I think that, and I hope you don't take offense, teens are kind of challenging, right? Anyone here have teens? Or you can't just give them a book. I don't think that that's going to work, right, Emily? So I think that you have to kind of be a little nudgy, and stealthy, and actually get teens to be involved with things as opposed to just sort of having them be passive recipients. So in my work, and I see my principal here from my school, which I'm so excited about, I do a lot of work with students. And what I try to do to get their involvement is for them to be leaders, for them to try to take this on and teach other people. And part of the reason why I got you and other people, other teens that are involved here in the book, is that I feel that if you get involved and you spread this message, I think it's more powerful than if I do. So Emily, if you and your friends can share with people the value of the book, I think it'll be much more powerful than if it comes from me. And part of what I'm trying to do is actually make videos. So I have some gritty teens, some I filmed here at the library, at Barnes & Noble, and trying to inspire teens to share their story so that other people will want to do it as well. So, and Emily, what about you? I know that a little bit about you, but why don't you share a little bit about your grit story?
So, in my sophomore year of high school, I had to miss a lot of school for medical reasons, and it was really hard to go back as a junior. And it was really hard socially, academically, to get back into the swing of things. So that was I had to use a lot of grit. And I agree with a lot of the things that you said, that now because I was able to do that, I'm able to do other hard things. And I think that a big part of grit is that it has to come from within. Like, you can't force someone to be gritty. It has to just happen on their own, and it has to really come from within. They have to want to do it.
Okay, so thank you, Emily. I'm so glad that you were able to do this with me. Can we give a round of applause to Emily?
Thanks for watching, and for more information about the Grit Guide for Teens, check out my website at drbaruchfeldman.com. Thank you.